Okay, am I recording? Okay, 1 2 1 2. So it is 2:30 in the morning, and it is February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day, and I can't sleep. So I got this book 2 days ago. I've never read it. Heard a lot of good things about it, and so this will be like a blind read through if we're like in gaming terms, and yeah, so it'll be a breakdown, or I don't know, like I'll read, I'll see what how I feel, we'll talk about it, and then we will continue to do it hour by hour. So hopefully to go for an hour, and then if you follow along, thank you. If I get anyone to watch this, I'll be happy. My viewing monitor is on this side, and my camera's right here, so I'm just making sure everything's working. I have the music going, so we'll get this. We'll get this just little underneath. How's it sound? How we sounding? Okay, it's not too bad. Okay, and I'm coming in clean. Okay, I don't. I have I'll keep my headphones on. It doesn't bother me. All right. The goal is to like, hopefully one day have this to where you can see the book, because this book is very visual. Like right away, as soon as you open it, it's like random numbers and letters, and I don't know why. Like I don't know what's going on. And then there's a little blurb in the cover title. Let me see. Can you see this? Yeah, yeah. So there's like a little thing here and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I just want to get to the book. But this is the second edition, it said. So there's a little pause symbol, and then House of Leaves, the title page. And if anything's interesting on the page, I'll pull the camera. But mostly this is more like bedtime storytelling. So, if you're up late like me and you can't sleep, listen to the story, relax. If you have never read this, enjoy the story. I'll be taking notes so I know what's going on, and just to break down, because then it's not straight stealing, or like, because you can't read books online, but we're gonna use the argument of fair use. Can you do like book reports? So that's how we will circumvent that. Like, I'm not putting on a show, I'm reading a book, talking about it, going through it, just like you would in a classroom. And I'm not like charging or anything. I just want to like experience this, and I've heard it's good. And if you've never experienced it, then then we can go through it together. And if you have read this book, then you get to witness someone going through it for the first time, how maybe catch something that you missed, or watch what I miss. So all I know about this book is that it's about a house, and there are different perspectives from people who lived in the house. That's all I know. I don't know what's going on in the book. I don't know anything. It was in the horror section of Barnes and Noble. So let's get started. This is a House of Leaves, and going for 1 hour. So let's do this. So you get table of contents, and then right here it says note on this edition. There's a little grid. Apparently there's a 2-color edition, a black and white edition, and an incomplete edition. But this is a full color edition. And then it says somewhere, I think it says second edition somewhere, but that's fine. I've only read like the first page, and then I'm like, you know what? I think I was too late. It was late for me when I started reading yesterday, and I was like, I'll just start this again next day, which is today, and I couldn't sleep. So first page, before it even starts, says this is not for you. A very blank page. And here we go. I still get nightmares. In fact, I get them so often I should be used to them by now. I'm not. No one ever really gets used to the nightmares. For a while there, I tried every pill imaginable, anything to curb the fear. Excedrin PMs, melatonin, L-tryptophan, Valium, Vicodin, quite a few members of the barbital family. A pretty extensive list, frequently mixed, often matched with shots of the vaporous confidence trip of cocaine. None of it helped. I think it's pretty safe to assume there's no lab sophisticated enough yet to synthesize the kind of chemicals I need. A Nobel Prize to the one who invents that puppy. Okay, so we have a person who can't sleep. And I think L-tryptophan is, what's that one? It's like an antihistamine or something like that. It's like a pink and white pill, I think. There was like a video about it. Anyway, I'm so tired. Sleep's been stalking. Is this book about me because he can't sleep? I'm so tired. Sleep's been stalking me for far too long to remember. Sleep's been stalking me for too long to remember. Inevitable, I suppose. Sadly, though, I'm not looking forward to the prospect. I say sadly because there was a time when I actually enjoyed sleeping. In fact, I slept all the time. That was before my friend Lude woke me up at 3 in the morning and asked me to come over to his place. Who knows? If I hadn't heard the phone ring, would everything be different now? I think about that a lot. Actually, Lude had told me about the old man a month or so before that fateful evening. This is in parentheses, is that right? Fate? It sure as hell wasn't full. Or was it exactly that? I'd been in the throes of looking for an apartment after a little difficulty with a landlord who woke up one morning convinced he was Charles de Gaulle. So I don't know who that is. Who's Charles de Gaulle? So we'll look that up so we know the reference. Charles de Gaulle. Okay. Hopefully it tells us or gives some context. I was so stunned by this announcement that before I could think twice, I'd already told him how, in my humble estimation, he did not at all resemble an airport, though the thought of a 757 landing on him was not at all disagreeable. I was promptly evicted. I could have put up a fight, but the place was a nut house anyway, and I was glad to leave. As it turned out, Chucky Dugal burnt the place to the ground a week later, told the police a 757 had crashed into it. He had been looking for an apartment after a little difficulty with a landlord. So the landlord went crazy, it sounds like, and he told him he didn't look like an airport, but wanted a plane to land on him. And then he burnt the place down. So he told the police a plane crashed into it. During the following weeks, while I was couching it from Santa Monica to Silver Lake, looking for an apartment, Lou told me about this old guy who lived in his building. He had a first-floor apartment. Peering out over a wide, overgrown courtyard, supposedly the old man had told Lou he would be dying soon. I didn't think much of it, though it wasn't exactly the kind of thing you forget either. At the time, I just figured Lou had been putting me on. He likes to exaggerate. I eventually found a studio in Hollywood and settled back into my mind-numbing routine as an apprentice at a tattoo shop. It was the end of '96. Nights were cold. I was getting over this woman named Clara English who had told me she wanted to date someone at the top of the food chain. So I demonstrated my unflagging devotion to her memory by immediately developing a heavy crush on this stripper who had Thumper tattooed right beneath her G-string, barely an inch from her shaved pussy, or as she liked to call it, the happiest place on earth. Suffice it to say, Lude and I spent the last hours of the year alone, scouting for new bars, new faces, driving recklessly through the canyons, doing our best to talk to high midnight heavens down with a whole lot of bullshit. We never did. Talk them down, I mean. Then the old man died. Music's kind of loud. Let me turn that down. Sorry. The old man died. From what I can gather now, he was an American, though, as I would later find out, those who worked with him detected an accent even if they could never say for certain where it came from. He called himself Zampano. It was the name he put down on his apartment lease and on several other fragments I found. I never came across any sort of ID, whether a passport, license, or other official document, insinuating that yes, he indeed was an actual accounted for person. Who knows where his name really came from. Maybe it's authentic, maybe made up, maybe borrowed. Nom du Plum, or my personal favorite, a Nom du Guir. Guir? I don't know. As Lute told it, Zampano had lived in the building for many years, and though he mostly kept to himself, he never failed to appear every morning and evening to walk around the courtyard, a wild place with knee-high weeds, and back then populated with over 80 stray cats. Apparently the cats liked the old man a lot, and though he offered no enticements, they would constantly rub up against his legs before darting back into the center of that dusty place. Anyway, Lute had been out very late with some woman he'd met at his salon. It was just after 7 when he finally stumbled back into the courtyard, and despite a severe hangover, immediately saw what was missing. Lute frequently came home early and always found the old guy working his way around the perimeter of all those weeds, occasionally resting on a sun-beaten bench before taking another round. A single mother who got up every morning at 6 also noted Zampano's absence. She went off to work. Lude went off to bed, but when dusk came and their old neighbor had still not appeared, both Lude and the single mother went to alert Flays, the resident building manager. A bunch of weird names in this. Flays, Lude, Zampano. I don't know where we are. Flays is part Hispanic, part Samoan. A bit of a giant, you might say. 6'4", 245 pounds, virtually no body fat. Dang, so this guy's like a big-ass security guard looking guy. Vandals, junkies, you name it. They get near the building and Flays will lunge at them like a pit bull raised in a crack house. And don't think he believes size and strength are invincible. If the interlopers are carrying, he'll show them his own gun collection. And he'll draw on them too, faster than Billy the Kid. But as soon as Lude voiced his suspicion about the old man, Pitbull and Billy the Kid went straight out the window. Flay suddenly couldn't find the keys. He started muttering about calling the owner of the building. After 20 minutes, Lude was so fed up with his hemming and hawing, he offered to handle the whole thing himself. Flays immediately found the keys, and with a big grin, plopped them into Lude's outstretched hand. Flays told me later he'd never seen a dead body before, and there was no question there would be a body, and that just didn't sit well with Flays. We knew what we'd find, he said. We knew that guy was dead. The police found Zampano just like Lude found him, lying face down on the floor. The paramedics said there was nothing unusual, just the way it goes. 80-some years and an inevitable kerplunk. The system goes down, lights blink out, and there you have it. Another body on the floor surrounded by things that don't mean much to anyone except the one who can't take any of them along. Still, this was better than the prostitute the paramedics had seen earlier that day. She had been torn to pieces in a hotel room, parts of her used to paint the walls and ceiling red. Compared to that, this almost seemed pleasant. The whole process took a while. Police coming and going, paramedics attending to the body. For one thing, making sure the old man was really dead. Neighbors and eventually even Flays poking their heads into gawk, wonder, or just graze on a scene that might someday resemble their own end. When it was finally over, it was very late. Lude stood alone in the apartment. The corpse gone, officials gone, even Flays, the neighbors and the others assorted snoops, all gone. Not a soul in sight. 80 fucking years old alone in that piss hole, Lude told me later. I don't want to end up like that. No wife, no kids, nobody at all. Not even one fucking friend. I must have laughed, because Lude suddenly turned on me. Hey, Haas. Don't think young and squirting lots of cum guarantees you shit. What? Sometimes the lines look off to me, so let me get this instead. Hey, Haas. Don't think young and squirting lots of cum guarantees you shit. Look at yourself. Working at a tattoo shop. This is... I don't know how we speak. Hey, Haas, don't think young and squirting lots of cum guarantees you shit. Look at yourself. Working at a tattoo shop. Falling for some stripper named Thumper. And he was sure right about one thing. Zampano had no family, no friends, and hardly a penny to his name. The next day, the landlord posted a notice of abandonment, and a week later, after declaring that the contents of the apartment were worth less than $300, he called some charity to haul the stuff away. That was the night Lude made his awful discovery, right before the boys from Goodwill or wherever they came from swept in with their gloves and hand trucks. When the phone rang, I was fast asleep. Anybody else I would have hung up on, but Lude's a good enough friend. I actually dragged my ass out of bed at 3 in the morning and headed over to Franklin. He was waiting outside at 3. Headed over to Franklin. Is Franklin a place or a person? He was waiting outside the gate with a wicked gleam in his eye. It's a person. I should have turned around right then. I should have known something was up. At the very least, sensed a consequence lingering in the air. In the hour, in Lude's stare, and all of it. And fuck, I must have been some kind of moron to have been so oblivious to all those signs. The way Lude's keys rattled like bone chimes as he opened the main gate, the hinges suddenly shrieking as if we were entering a crowded building but some ancient moss-eaten crypt. Or the way we padded down the dank hallway, buried in shadows, lamps above hung with spangles of light that I swear now must have been the work of gray, primitive spiders. Probably most important of all, the way Lude whispered when he told me things I couldn't give a damn about back then, but now all my nights would be a great deal shorter if I didn't have to remember them. Ever see yourself doing something in the past, and no matter how many times you remember it, you still want to scream stop, somehow redirect the action, reorder the present? I feel that way now, watching myself tug stupidly along the inertia, my own inquisitiveness, or whatever else, and it must have been something else. Though what exactly, I have no clue. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing's all. Maybe nothing's all. A pretty meaningless combination of words. Nothing's all, but one I like just the same. It doesn't matter anyway. Whatever orders the path of all my yesterdays was strong enough that night to draw me past all those sleepers kept safely at bay from living, locked behind their sturdy doors until I stood at the end of the hall facing the last door on the left. An unremarkable door, too, but still a door to the dead. Lude, of course, had been unaware of the unsettling characteristics of our little journey to the back of the building. He had been recounting to me, in many ways dwelling upon what had happened following the old man's death. 2 things, Haas, Lude muttered as the gate glided open. Not that they make much a difference. And as far as I can tell, he was right. They have very little to do with what follows. I include them only because they're part of history surrounding Zampano's death. Hopefully you'll be able to make sense of what I can represent, though still fail to understand. The first peculiar thing, Lude told me, leading the way around a short flight of stairs, were the cats. Apparently, in the months preceding the old man's death, the cats had begun to disappear. By the time he died, they were all gone. I saw one with its head ripped off, and another with its guts strewn all over the sidewalk. Mostly, though, they just vanished. The second peculiar thing. You'll see for yourself, Lude said, lowering his voice even more, as we slipped past the room of what looked suspiciously like a coven of musicians, all of them listening intently to headphones passing around a spliff. Right next to the body, Lude continued, I found these gouges in the hardwood floor, a good 6 or 7 inches long. Very weird. But since the old man showed no sign of physical trauma, the cops let it go. He stopped. We'd reached the door. Now I shudder. Back then, I think I was elsewhere. More than likely daydreaming about Thumper. This will probably really wig you out. I don't care, but one night, I even rented Bambi and got a hard-on. That's how bad I had it for her. Thumper was something else. And she sure beat the hell out of Claire English. Perhaps, at that moment, I was thinking about what the two would look like in a cat fight. One thing's for sure, though. When I heard Lude turn the bolt and open Zampano's door, I lost sight of those dreams. What hit me first was the smell. It wasn't a bad smell, just incredibly strong. And it wasn't one thing either. It was extremely layered, a patina upon a progressive patina of odor, the actual source of which had long since evaporated. Back then it had overwhelmed me, so much of it. Cloying, bitter, rotten, even mean. These days I can no longer remember the smell, only my reaction to it. Still, if I had to give it a name, I think I would call it the scent of human history. A composite of sweat, urine, shit, blood, flesh, and semen, as well as joy, sorrow, jealousy, rage, vengeance, fear, love, hope, and a whole lot more. All of which probably sounds pretty ridiculous, especially since the abilities of my nose are not really relevant here. What's important, though, is that this smell was complex for a reason. All the windows were nailed shut and sealed with caulking. The front entrance of the courtyard door is all stormproof. Even the vents were covered with duct tape. That said, this peculiar effort to eliminate any ventilation in the tiny apartment did not culminate with bars on the windows or multiple locks on the doors. Zampano was not afraid of the outside world. As I've already pointed out, he walked around his courtyard and supposedly was even fearless enough to brave the LA public transportation system for an occasional trip to the beach, an adventure even I'm afraid to make. My best guess now is that he sealed his apartment in an effort to retain various emanations of his things in himself. Where his things were concerned, they ran spectrum. Tattered furniture, unused candles, ancient shoes, these in particular looking sad and wounded, ceramic bowls as well as glass jars and small wood boxes full of rivets, rubber bands, seashells, matches, peanut shells, 1,000 different kinds of elaborately shaped and colored buttons. One ancient beer stein held nothing more than a discarded perfume bottles. As I discovered, the refrigerator wasn't empty, but there wasn't any food in it either. Zampano crammed it full of strange pale books. Of course, all that's gone now. Long gone. The smell, too. I'm left with only a few scattered mental snapshots. A battered Zippo lighter with patent pending printed on the bottom. The twining metal ridge shining. Real quick, I have a Zippo. I need to get it where it's right here. I need to get it. It doesn't light. I think I need to get feel underneath, because you take it out, and then you pull this out and fill it. But this says doesn't say patent pending, so distraction. Also, while I'm here, let's write down a few things. So our perspective, we are Haas, as we know of. We like Thumper. I don't understand the Bambi reference. Bambi's an animated movie, so we'll write Bambi ? And then our friend is Lude, and we write that down, friend. And who was the landlord? He was a big Samoan dude. Flays. Okay, Flays. Landlord. Or the guy with the keys. Samoan dude, landlord, big guy. And then who died? Old man died. What was his name? Zampano. Old man died. Cat's disappeared. Cat's gone. ? Why? And cat's head is missing. Cat's head missing. Okay. So before we get too far deep and forget some notes. Okay. Where was I? Zippo lighter. These are Zampano's things. One ancient beer stein. Okay, as I discovered, the refrigerator wasn't empty, but there wasn't any food in it either. Zampano crammed it full of strange pale books. Of course, all that's gone now, long gone. The smell too. I'm left with only a few scattered mental snapshots. Excuse me. I had burp water. A battered Zippo lighter. With... I don't have any water in here. A battered Zippo lighter with patent pending printed on the bottom. The twining metal ridge, looking a little like some tiny spiral staircase, winding down into the bulbous interior of a light socket. And for some odd reason, what I remember most of all, a very old tube of chapstick with an amber-like resin, hard and cracked, which still isn't entirely accurate. Though don't be misled into thinking I'm not trying to be accurate. There were, I admit, other things I recall about his place. They just don't seem relevant now. To my eye, it was all just junk. Time having performed no economic alchemy there, which hardly mattered, as Lude hadn't called me over to root around in these particular, and to use one of those big words I would eventually learn in the ensuing months, deracinated details of Zampano's life. Deracinated. Sure enough, just as my friend has described on the floor, in fact, particularly dead center, were the 4 marks, all of them longer than a hand, jagged bits of wood clawed up by something neither one of us cared to imagine. But that's not what Lude wanted me to see either. He was pointing at something else, which hardly impressed me when I first glanced at its implacable shape? Implacable? I don't know. Why can't I read? Implacable shape. Truth be told. Alright, so we have 2 words. Deracinated. Right? Deracinated. increase our vocab as we read. And implaceable, I want to say implaceable, but I don't think that's it. Those are words I'll look up and figure out. Truth be told, I was still having a hard time taking my eyes off the scarred floor. I even reached out to touch the protruding splinters. What did I know then? What do I know now? At least some of the horror I took away at 4 a.m, you now have before you, waiting for you a little like it waited for me that night, only without these few covering pages. As I discovered, there were reams and reams of it. Endless snarls of words, sometimes twisting into meaning, sometimes into nothing at all, frequently breaking apart, always branching off to other pieces I'd come across later on old napkins, the tattered edges of an envelope, once even on the back of a postage stamp. Everything and anything but empty, each fragment completely covered with the creep of years and years of ink pronouncements, layered, crossed out, amended, handwritten, typed, legible, illegible, impenetrable, lucid, torn, stained, scotch taped, some bits crisp and clean, others faded, burnt, or folded, and refolded so many times the creases have obliterated whole passages of God knows what sense. Truth, deceit, a legacy of prophecy or lunacy, or nothing of the kind, and in the end achieving, designating, describing, recreating, find your own words. I have no more or plenty more, but why, and all to tell what. Lou didn't need to have the answer, but somehow he knew I would. Maybe that's why we were friends. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did need the answer. He just knew he wasn't the one who could find it. Maybe that's the real reason we're friends. But that's probably wrong too. One thing's for sure, even without touching it, both of us slowly began to feel its heaviness, sense something horrifying in its proportions, its silence, its stillness, even if it did not seem to have been shoved almost carelessly to the side of the room. I think now if someone had said be careful, we would have. I know a moment came when I felt certain its resolute blackness was capable of anything, maybe even us slashing out, tearing up the floor, murdering Zampano, murdering us, maybe even murdering you. And then the moment passed. Wonder in the way the unimaginable is. Sometimes suggested by the inanimate suddenly faded, the thing became only a thing. So I took it home. What is he talking about? Did I miss something? Twining metal, bubble, very, which we didn't need to have an answer. My friend described the floors, the center were jagged bits of wood, something needed of us. That's not what Lude wanted me to see. He was pointing at something else which hardly impressed me. When I first glanced at it, implicable. Oh my god. We're looking that word up right now. Looking it up. Show me how to say this and what it means. What is this? Implacable. I was close. Unable to be placid. That you're just using the same word. What does it mean? Similar, unappeasable, the implacable advance of the enemy. Implacable describes someone or something that is impossible to appease, satisfy, or change. So hardly impressed when I first glanced at its implacable shape. Having a hard time getting eyes off the scarred floor. What did I know? What do I know now? At least some horror I took at 4 a.m, you now have before you, waiting for you with little like it waited for me, only without these few covering pages. Endless notes. So, is it like just a stack of papers? Because he said he found books in the fridge, and is that what he's talking about? Okay, that's what I'm guessing. So, it's a bunch of papers because there was a lot of messages written. So that's what we're looking at. I'm guessing from what's been described. That and the floor is, why is the floor clawed out? Back then, we continue. Okay. Back then, well, it's way back then by now. You could have found me downing shots of whiskey at La Pobelle, annihilating my inner ear at the Bar Deluxe, or dining at Jones with some busty redhead I'd met at the House of Blues. Our conversation traversing wildly from clubs we knew well. Traversing wildly from clubs we knew well to clubs we'd like to know better. I sure as fuck wasn't bothered by old man Z's words. All those signs I just now finished telling you about quickly vanished in life's subsequent days, or had never been there to begin with. existing only in retrospect. At first, only curiosity drove me from one phrase to the next. Often a few days would pass before I'd pick up another mauled scrap, maybe even a week, but still I returned for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, grazing over the scenes, the names, small connections starting to form, minor pattern, minor patterns evolving in those spare slivers of time. I never read for more than an hour. Of course, curiosity killed the cat, and even if satisfaction supposedly brought it back, there's still a little problem with the man on the radio telling me more and more about some useless information. But I didn't care. I just turned the radio off. And then one evening I looked over at my clock and discovered 7 hours had passed. Luda called, but I didn't notice the phone ring. I was more than a little surprised when I found his message on my answering machine. That wasn't the last time I lost sense of time either. In fact, it began to happen more often. Dozens of hours just blinking by, lost in the twist of so many dangerous sentences. Slowly but surely I grew more and more disoriented, increasing more detached from the world, something sad and awful straining around the edges of my mouth, surfacing in my eyes. I stopped going out at night. I stopped going out. Nothing could distract me. I felt like I was losing control. Something terrible was going to happen. Eventually something terrible did happen. No one could reach me, not Thumper, not even Lude. I nailed my windows shut, threw out the closet and bathroom doors, storm-proofed everything, and locks. Oh yes, I bought plenty of locks, chains too, and dozens of measuring tapes, nailing all those straight to the floor and walls. They looked suspiciously like lost metal roods, or from different angle, the fragile ribs of some alien ship. However, unlike Zampano, this wasn't about smell. This was about space. I wanted a closed, inviolate, and most of all, immutable space. At least the measuring tape should have helped. They didn't. Nothing did. I just fixed myself some tea on the hot plate here. My stomach's gone. I can barely keep even this honey milk stuff down, but I need the warmth. I'm in a hotel now. My studio's history. A lot these days is history. I haven't even washed the blood off yet. Not all of it's mine either. Still caked around my fingers. Signs of it on my shirt. What's happened here? I keep asking myself. What have I done? What would you have done? I went straight for the guns and I loaded them and I tried to decide what to do with them. The obvious thing was shoot something. After all, that's what guns are designed to do. Shoot something. But who or what? I didn't have a clue. There were people in cars outside my hotel window. Midnight people I didn't know. Midnight cars I've never seen before. I could have shot them. I could have shot them all. I threw up in my closet instead. Of course, I only have my own miserable stupidity to blame for winding up here. The old man left plenty of clues and warnings. I was a fool to disregard them. Or was it in reverse? Did I secretly enjoy them? Or at least I should have had some fucking inkling of what I was getting into when I read this note written just one day before he died. Okay, so this took a wild fucking twist. And this is only the intro. So this guy, Haas, there was also another note I wanted to make. Curiosity killed the cat. I said I didn't know where we were. I know we're in LA, and it's the year 96. So we're in LA. I'm writing this down. 96. But the names are just weird. That's why I'm like, where the hell are we? And so, and we're reading notes from Zampano. So that's where we're at. And I usually have to stop and assess everything. And once I start getting in like flow, then I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. But getting back into like reading and everything, you like sort of have to like relearn your how to do it pretty much. Okay, so we're reading a note. January 5th. This is Zampano's note before one day before he died. So he died January 6th. So this note, January 5th, 1997. We should write that down on notes. I'll write after this. Whoever finds and publishes this work shall be entitled to all proceeds. I ask only that my name takes its rightful place, and perhaps you will even prosper. If, however, you discover that readers are less than sympathetic and chose to dismiss this enterprise out of hand, then I may suggest you drink plenty of wine and dance in the sheets of your wedding night, for whether you know it or not, now you truly are prosperous. They say the truth stands the test of time. I can think of no greater comfort than knowing this document failed such a test. Okay, so if this book is, oh my god, okay, I didn't see that. So this is by Zampano. That's crazy. This whole thing. And this is what he found, is this book. Or he made what he found into this book. Haas. Okay. Which, back then, meant absolutely nothing to me. Okay, so we're done with the note. Which, back then, meant absolutely nothing to me. I sure as hell didn't pause to think that some lousy words were going to land me in a shitty hotel room saturated with the stink of my own vomit. After all, as I fast discovered, Zampano's entire project is about film which doesn't even exist. You can look, but no matter how long you search, you'll never find the Navidson record in theaters or video stores. Furthermore, most of what's said by famous people is made up. I tried contacting all of them. Excuse me, I have to burp. Those that took the time to respond told me they never heard of Will Navidson, let alone Zampano. As far as the books cited in the footnotes, a good portion of them are fictitious. For instance, Gavin Young's Shot in the Dark doesn't exist, nor does The Words of Hubert Howe Bancroft, volume, is that 18, volume, or 28, XX5, 10, 10, 20, 5, 26, 27, 28, volume 28. On the other hand, virtually any dimwit can go to a library and find W.M. Lindsay and H.J. Thompson's Ancient Lore and Medieval Latin glossaries. There really was a rebellion on the 1973 Skylab mission, but La Belle Nicoise et Le Chien is made up as is. I assume the bloody story of Quesada and Molino. Add to this my own mistakes, and there's no doubt I'm responsible for plenty, as well as those errors Zampano made which I failed to notice or correct. And you'll see why there's suddenly a whole lot here not to take too seriously. In retrospect, I also realize there are probably numerous people who would have been better qualified to handle this work. Scholars with PhDs from Ivy League schools and minds greater than any Alexandrian library or WorldNet. Problem is, those people were still in their universities, still in their net, and nowhere near Whitley when an old man without friends or family finally died. Zampano, I've come to recognize now, was a very funny man, but his humor was that wry, desiccated kind soldiers whisper all their jokes. Soldiers whisper, all their jokes resurface, their laughter amounting to little more than a tick in the corner of the mouth, told as they wait together in their outposts, slowly realizing that help's not going to reach them in time, and come nightfall, no matter what they've done or what they try to say, slaughter will overrun them all. Carrion dawn for vultures. See, the irony is it makes no difference that the documentary at the heart of this book is fiction. Zampano knew from the get-go that what's real or isn't real doesn't matter here. The consequences are the same. I can suddenly imagine the cracked voice I never heard, lips barely creasing into a smile, eyes pinned on darkness. Irony can never be more than our own personal imaginate line, the drawing of it for the most part purely arbitrary. It's not surprising then that when it came to undermining his own work, the old man was superbly capable. False quotes or invented sources, however, all pale in comparison to his biggest joke. Zampano writes constantly about seeing. What we see, how we see, and what in turn we can't see. Over and over again, in one form or another, he returns to the subject of light, space, shape, line, color, focus, tone, contrast, movement, rhythm, perspective, and composition, none of which is surprising, considering Zampano's piece centers on a documentary film called The Navidson Record, made by a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist who must somehow capture the most difficult subject of all, the sight of darkness itself. Odd, to say the least. At first I figured Zampano was just a bleak old dude, the kind who makes Itchy and Scratchy look like Calvin and Hobbes. His apartment, however, didn't come close to anything envisioned by Joel Peter Witkin or what's routinely reviewed on the news. Sure, his place was electric, but hardly grotesque, or even that far out of the ordinary, until of course you took a more careful look and realized, hey, why are all these candles unused? Why no clocks, none on the walls, not even in the corner of a dresser? And what's with these strange pale books, or the fact that there's hardly a goddamn bulb in the whole apartment, not even one in the refrigerator? Well, that, of course, was Zampano's greatest ironic gesture. Love of love, written by a broken-hearted, love of life, written by the dead. All this language of light, film, and photography, and he hadn't seen a thing since the mid-50s. He was blind as a bat. Almost half the books he owned were in Braille, Lewd and Flays both confirmed that over the years the old guy had numerous readers visiting him during the day. Some of these came from community centers, the Braille Institute, or were just volunteers from USC, UCLA, or Santa Monica College. No one I ever spoke with, however, claimed to know him well, though more than a few were willing to offer me their opinions. One student believed he was certifiably mad. Another actress who had spent summer reading to him, though Zampano was a romantic. One student believed he was certifiably mad. Another actress who spent a summer reading to him thought Zampano was a romantic. She had come over one morning and found him in a terrible way. At first I assumed he was drunk, but the old guy never drank, not even a sip of wine, didn't smoke either. He really lived in a very austere life. Anyway, he wasn't drunk, just really depressed. He started crying and asked me to leave. I fixed him some tea. Tears don't frighten me. Later he told me it was heart trouble. Just old heartache matters, he said. Whoever she was, she must have been really special. He never told me her name. As I eventually found out, Zampano had 7 names he would occasionally mention. Beatrice, Gabrielle, Anne-Marie, Dominique, Elaine, Isabel, and Claudine. He apparently only brought them up when he was disconsolate and for whatever reason dragged back into some dark tangle time. At least there's something more realistic about 7 lovers than one mythological Helen. Even in his 80s, Zampano sought out the company of the opposite sex. Coincidence had no hand in arranging for all of his readers to be female, as he openly admitted. There is no greater comfort in my life than those soothing tones cradled in a woman's words, except maybe his own words. Zampano was, in essence, to use another big word, a graphomaniac. He scribbled until he died, and while he came close a few times, he never finished anything, especially the work he would unabashedly describe as either his masterpiece or his precious darling. Even the day before he failed to appear in the dusty courtyard, he was dictating long discursive passages, amending previously written pages, and restructuring an entire chapter. His mind never ceased branching out into new territories. The woman who saw him for the last time remarked that whatever it was he could never quite address in himself prevented him from ever settling. Hold on, I gotta read that again. The woman who saw him for the last time remarked that whatever it was he could never quite address in himself prevented him from ever settling. Death finally saw to that. With a little luck, you'll dismiss this labor. React as Zampano had hoped. Call it needlessly complicated, pointlessly obtuse, prolix your word, ridiculously conceived, and you'll believe all you've said, and then you'll put it aside. Though even here, just the one word aside makes me shudder, for what is ever really just put aside. And you'll carry on, eat, drink, be merry, and most of all, you'll sleep well. Then again, there's a good chance you won't. This much I'm certain of. It doesn't happen immediately. You'll finish, and that will be that. Until a moment will come, maybe in a month, maybe a year, maybe several years. You'll be sick or feeling trouble or deeply in love or quietly uncertain, or even content for the first time in your life. It won't matter. Out of the blue, beyond any case you can trace, you'll suddenly realize things are not how you perceive them at all to be. For some reason, you will no longer be the person you believed you once were. You'll detect slow and subtle shifts going on all around you. More importantly, shifts in you. Worse, you'll realize it's always been shifting, like a shimmer of sorts, a vast shimmer, only dark like a room, but you won't understand why or how. You'll have forgotten what granted you this awareness in the first place. Old shelters, televisions, magazines, movies won't protect you anymore. You might try scribbling in a journal, on a napkin, maybe even the margins of this book. That's when you'll discover you no longer trust the very walls you always took for granted. Even the hallways you walked 100 times will feel longer, much longer, and shadows, any shadow at all, will suddenly seem deeper, much, much deeper. You might try then, as I did, to find a sky so full of stars it will blind you again. Only no sky can blind you now. Even with all that iridescent magic up there, your eye will no longer linger on the light. It will no longer trace constellations. You'll care only about the darkness, and you'll watch it for hours, for days, maybe even for years, trying in vain to believe you're some kind of indispensable, universe-appointed sentinel, as if just by looking you could actually keep it all at bay. It will get so bad you'll be afraid to look away. You'll be afraid to sleep. No matter where you are, in a crowded restaurant, some desolate street, or even in comfort of your own home, you'll watch yourself dismantle every assurance you ever lived by. You'll stand aside as a great complexity intrudes, tearing apart piece by piece all of your carefully conceived denials, whether deliberate or unconscious, and then for better or worse, you'll turn unable to resist. Though try to resist, you still will, fighting with everything you've got to no face, fighting everything you've got not to face the thing you've most dread. What is now, what will be, what has always come before, the creature you truly are, the creature we all are, buried in the nameless black of a name, and then the nightmares will begin. Johnny Trant, October 31st, 1998. So who's Johnny? Alright, so we have Johnny. We're Haas. So are we Johnny? Okay, and that was the intro. Okay. So, this just says, Mus es sin, which sounds French. And then here's the start of the Novitzin record. It's just a blank page. It says Novitzin record. And then here we go. That was like the intro to the book. And now we're starting the book, or whatever this is. So this was Zampano's work that we're going through. Oh, so how far is this? Because we are at 46 minutes. So if I can finish... Okay, so the chapter is like 3 pages, but, at an hour I'll stop. And then I'm kind of enthralled, so I'll keep going until I'm tired. So I'll do this one and then see how I feel until I get to the hour. So we have our intro. We're starting the book. Let's keep going. How do I feel about that? I mean, it's like very, it's like warning you. It's a big warning. Like, hey, this guy left this work. You're getting into it. This is what it did to me. And it's very, like, very vague with the interpretation. Like, there are mistakes in it. And I made mistakes while, like, Haas put it together. So he's like, there could be mistakes and you'll find mistakes or maybe won't. And now we're focusing on Vision because, what's his face? Zampano was blind. And so he couldn't see. So other things were probably heightened, like hearing and because he can only see darkness. So far blind people, that's like they can't see, but that's what I'm assuming. So that's where my head's at right now. So chapter 1, the Novitzin file. And then there's a quote at the top. It says, I saw a film today. Oh boy. By the Beatles. I don't know any of the Beatles songs other than the popular ones. I don't even know that lyric. While enthusiasts, and this is a fake, like a fake thing. This doesn't exist. Like, the Novitzin record only exists right here. There's no, in this book, we're told, so far. I don't know if the Novitzin record exists outside of this now. We're going by this information that we have. While enthusiasts and detractors will continue to empty the entire dictionary... While enthusiasts and detractors will continue to empty entire dictionaries attempting to describe or decide or deride it, authenticity still remains the word most likely to stir debate. In fact, this leading obsession to validate or invalidate the reels and tapes invariably brings up a collateral and more general concern. Whether or not, with the advent of digital technology, images has forsaken its once unimpeachable hold on the truth. And there's a little one for like a footnote. So, oh yeah, down here at the very bottom of the page. It says a topic more carefully considered in chapter 9. So, I don't know if we're bouncing back and forth. So I'll read it. If there's like this many footnotes, it's going to be hard to like track a lot. So hopefully the story is just coherent enough to go through, and then if we have to like recall something, it's there for us. For the most part, skeptics call the whole effort a hoax, but grudgingly admit the Novitzin record is a hoax of exceptional quality. The Invincible is a hoax of exceptional quality. Unfortunately, to those who accept its validity, many tend to swear allegiance to tabloid UFO sightings. Clearly, it is not easy to appear credible when, after vouching for the film's verity, the discourse suddenly switches to why Elvis is still alive and probably wintering in the Florida Keys. There's a footnote. One thing remains certain: any controversy surrounding Billy Meyer's film on flying saucers has been supplanted by the house on Ash Tree Lane. Though many continue to devote substantial time and energy to the antinomies? Oh man, these words just got crazy. I need a multiple of this. And antinomies? What is this? What does it mean? How do you say it?
Antinomy.
Antinomy. A contradiction to two beliefs or conclusions that are in themselves reasonable. An example: this sentence is false, where the sentence truth implies its falsehood, and vice versa. I get it. Okay, so antinomy. Though many continue to devote substantial time and energy to the antinomies of fact or fiction, representation or artifice, document or prank, as of late, the more interesting material dwells exclusively on the interpretation of events within the film. This direction seems more promising, even if the house itself, like Melville's Behemoth, remains resistant to summation. Much like its subject, the Novitzin record itself is also uneasily contained, whether by category or election. If finally catalogued as a Gothic tale, contemporary urban folk myth, or merely a ghost story, as some have called it, the documentary will still, sooner or later, slip the limits of any one of those genres. Too many important things in the Novitzin record jut out past the borders. Where one might accept horror, the supernatural, or traditional paroxysms of dread and fear, one discovers disturbing sadness, a sequence on radioactive isotopes, or even laughter over a Simpsons episode. In the 17th century, England's greatest topographer of worlds, satanic and divine, warned that hell was nothing less than regions of sorrow, doleful shades where peace and rest can never dwell. Hope never comes, that comes to all. Thus echoing the words copied down by hell's most famous tourists: De nausea me non forcos crete, se non io eterno duro, lascia ogni speranza voci tra. I think that's Latin. How can I read Latin better than my own language? It's from, the first bit comes from Milton's Paradise Lost. This is the footnote from that Latin phrase. And the second is from Dante's Inferno. And here's the translation for it. Before me nothing was created but eternal things, and they endure eternally. Abandon every hope, ye that enter. So, I know abandon every hope. Abandon all hope, all who enter is the phrase above the gates of hell. So that second part's from Dante, and the first part's from Paradise Lost, which is like the anti-Bible, or it's like the story told from the devil's perspective, something like that. So maybe if this goes well, I'll read that next or something. You know, I'm always down to read. Let's keep going. We'll finish this chapter. Even today, many people still feel the Novitzin record, in spite of all. Oh my gosh, I can't read. Even today, many people still feel the Novitzin record, in spite of all its existential refinements and contemporary illusions, continues to reflect those exact sentiments. In fact, a few eager intellectuals have already begun to treat the film as a warning in and of itself, perfectly suited for hanging whole above the gates of such schools as architectonics, Papomo, consequentialism, neoplasticism, phenomenology, information theory, Marxism, biosemiotics, to say nothing of psychological medicine, New Age spirituality, art, and even neo-minimalism. Will Nevidson, however, remains stalwart in his insistence that his documentary should be taken literally. As he himself says, all this, don't take it as anything else but this. And if one day you find yourself passing by that house, don't stop. Don't slow down. Just keep going. There's nothing there. Beware. Considering how the film ends, it is not surprising that more than a handful of people have decided to heed his advice. The Nevidson record did not first appear as it does today. Nearly 7 years ago, what surfaced was the 5.5-minute hallway, a 5.5-minute optical illusion barely exceeding the abilities of any NYU film school graduate. The problem, of course, was that accompanying statement that claimed all of it was true. In one continuous shot, Nevidson, whom we never actually see, momentarily focuses on a doorway on the north wall of his living room before climbing outside of the house through a window to the east of that door, where he trips slightly in the flower bed, redirects the camera from the ground to the exterior white clapboard, then moves right, crawling back inside the house through the second window, this time to the west of that door, where we hear him grunt slightly as he knocks his head on the sill, eliciting light laughter from those in the room, presumably Karen, his brother Tom, and his friend Billy Reston, though like Nevidson, they too never appear on camera, before finally returning us to the starting point, thus completely circling the doorway, and so proving, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that insulation or sighting is the only possible thing this doorway could lead to, which is when all laughter stops, as Nevidson's hand appears in the frame, pulls open a door, revealing a narrow black hallway at least 10 feet long, prompting Nevidson to reinvestigate, once again leading us on another circumambulation of this passageway, climbing in and out of the windows, pointing the camera to where the hallway should extend, but finding nothing more than his own backyard. No 10-foot protuberance, just rose bushes, a muddy dark gun, and the translucent summer air. In essence, an exercise in disbelief, which, despite his best intentions, still takes Nevidson back inside to that impossible hallway, until as the camera begins to move closer, threatening this time to actually enter it, Karen snaps, "Don't you dare go in there again, Navi." To which Tom adds, "Yeah, not such a hot idea," thus arresting Nevidson at the threshold, though he still puts his hand inside, finally retracting and inspecting it, as if by seeing alone there might be something more to feel. Reston wanting to know if in fact his friend does sense something different, and Nevidson providing the matter-of-fact answer, which also serves as a conclusion. However, we're up to this bizarre short. It's freezing in there. Excuse me. Dissemination of the 5.5-minute hallway seemed driven by curiosity alone. No one ever officially distributed it, and so it never appeared in film festivals or commercial film circles. Rather, VHS copies were passed around by hand. A series of progressively degenerating dubs of a home video revealing a truly bizarre house with notably very few details about the owners, or for that matter, the author of the piece. Less than a year later, another short surfaced. It was even more hotly sought after than the 5.5-minute hallway, and resulted in some frequent quests for Nevidson and the house itself, all of which, for one reason or another, failed. Unlike the first, this short was not a continuous shot, prompting many to speculate that the 8 minutes making up exploration number 4 were in fact bits of a much larger whole. The structure of exploration number 4 is highly discontinuous, jarring, and is evidenced by many poor edits, even hurried. The first shot catches Nevidson mid-phrase. He is tired, depressed, and pale. Days, I think, and I don't know. Drink of something, unclear what. Actually, I'd like to burn it down. Can't think clearly enough to do it, though. He laughs. And now, this. The next shot jumps to Karen and Tom, arguing over whether or not to go in after him. At this point, it remains unclear to whom they are referring. There are several more shots. Trees in winter, blood on the kitchen floor, one shot of a child, Daisy crying, then back to Nevidson. Nothing but this tape, which I've seen enough times. It's more like a memory than anything else, and I still don't know. Was he right, or just out of his mind? Followed by 3 more shots. Dark hallways, windowless rooms, stairs. Then a new voice. I'm lost. Out of food, low on water, no sense of direction. Oh God. The speaker is bearded, broad-shouldered a man with frantic eyes. He speaks rapidly, appeared in short breath. Holloway Roberts, born in Menominee, Wisconsin. Bachelor's from University of Massachusetts. There's something here. It follows me. No, it's stalking me. All right, I kind of want to reread that because I read that in a cheery voice, and I thought that's what it. But this guy is like, this is film, and this is a new scene for this voice. Like this is just in exploration number 4. So it says, then a new voice, and he's like, I'm lost, out of food, low on water, no sense of direction. Oh God. The speaker is bearded, broad-shouldered man with frantic eyes. He speaks rapidly and appears short of breath. Holloway Roberts, born in Menifee, Wisconsin, bachelor's from University of Massachusetts. There's something here. It's following me. No, it's stalking me. I haven't stalked by it for days, but for some reason it's not attacking. It's waiting for something. I don't know what. Holloway Roberts, Menifee, Wisconsin. I'm not alone here. I'm not alone. Thus bringing to an end this strange abstract which, as the release of the Novitzin record revealed, was sparingly incomplete. Then for 2 years nothing. Few clues about any of these people were, though eventually a number of photographers in the news community did recognize the author as none other than Will Novitzin, the prize-winning photojournalist who won the Pulitzer for his picture of a dying girl in Sudan. Unfortunately, this discovery only generated a few months of heated speculation before, in the absence of press corroboration, the location of the house, or for that matter, any comment by Novitzin himself, interest died out. Most people just wrote it off as some kind of weird hoax, or because of the unusual conceit, an aberrant UFO sighting. Nevertheless, the deteriorating dubs did circulate, and in some trendy academic circles a debate began. Was the subject a haunted house? What did Holloway mean by lost? How could anyone be lost in a house? For days anyway. Furthermore, what was someone with Novitzin's credentials doing creating 2 strange shorts like these? And again, was this artifice or reality? Certainly a good deal of debate was sustained by a bit of old-fashioned cultural elitism. People talked about the Novitzin pieces because they were lucky enough to have seen them. Lee Sinclair suspects a majority of professors, students, Soho artists, and avant-garde filmmakers who spoke and even wrote so knowingly about the tapes more than likely had never even viewed one frame. There just weren't that many copies available. While the 5.5-minute hallway and exploration number 4 have been respectively called a teaser and a trailer, they are also in their own right a peculiar cinematic moments. On purely symbolic level, they afford a vast potential for examination. The compression of space, the power of the imagination to decompress that space, the house as trope for the unlimited and the unknowable, etc., etc. On a strictly visceral level, they provide ample shocks of curiosities. However, the most unnerving aspect about both pieces is their ability to convince us that everything really happened, some of which can be attributed to the verifiable elements. Holloway Roberts, Will Novitzin, and E.T.A.L. I've seen etc. I don't know what E.T.A.L. means. But most of which must be chalked up to the starkness of the production, the absence of makeup, expensive soundtracks or crane shots. Except for framing, editing, and in some case subtitles, there is virtually no room for creative intrusion. Who would have suspected that almost 3 years after the 5.5-minute hallway began appearing on VHS, Miramax would quietly release the Novitzin record in a limited run and almost immediately unsettle audiences everywhere. Since the opening 3 years ago last April in New York and Los Angeles, the Novitzin record has been screened nationwide, and while hardly a blockbuster, the film continues to generate revenue as well as interest. Film periodicals frequently publish reviews, critiques, and letters. Books devoted entirely to the Novitzin record now appear with some regularity. Numerous professors have made the Novitzin record required viewing for their seminars, while many universities have already claimed that dozens of students from a variety of departments have completed doctoral dissertations on the film. Comments and references frequently appear in Harper's, The New Yorker, Esquire, American Heritage, Vanity Fair, Spin, as well as on late-night television. Interest abroad is equally intense. Japan, France, and Norway have all responded with awards, but to this day the spectral Novitzin has yet to appear, let alone accept any of these. Even the garrulous Weinstein brothers remain unusually reticent about the film and its creator. Interview magazine quoted Harvey Weinstein as saying, "It is what it is. The Nowitzki record now stands as part of the country's cultural experience, and yet, in spite of the fact that hundreds and thousands of people have seen it, the film continues to remain an enigma. Some insist it must be true. Others believe it is a trick on par with the Orson Welles radio romp, The War of the Worlds. Others could care less, admitting that either way, the Nowitzki record is a pretty good tale. Still, many have never even heard of it. These days, with the unlikely prospect of any sort, or these days with unlikely I can't even talk. And we're right there at the end. These days, with the unlikely prospect of any sort of post-release resolution or revelation, Nowitzki's film seems destined to achieve at most cult status. Good storytelling alone will guarantee a healthy sliver of popularity in the years to come, but its inherent strangeness will permanently bar it from the mainstream interest." Okay, so we're still in the Nowitzki record, and this is chapter 2 of that, but we are at an hour. That was an hour. So that was I'm super hooked on. Usually I get tired and fall asleep when I start reading. I'm I want to see everything. Okay, Nowitzki record. We're writing notes about this. So we have what was his name? We'll just call him Nowitzki. I forgot his first name right now. So Nowitzki, he's a Pulitzer photographer, meaning he's really good. And he made a film. He made what we know, the 5-minute hallway. 5-minute hallway. And he turned what looks like a regular hallway into an optical illusion. And the film is, it's like a paradoxal. So is it real? Because there have been reports about it. People have there's film, and then there's the 4-minute or exploration number 4, right? I just put number 4. And so the problem with this is why is he doing this, and where is his house, and is it real? Because sure, it's been screened, but no one it's what was that word? Antinomy. It's this sentence is false. So people, it's is it real? Is it not? Colleges are making people watch it, but no one's seen it. Is it so popular that people did it grow outside of itself? That's where my head is right now. And in my head, whatever is going on in Zampano's documentation happened to Zampano, and maybe there's 2 things going on at the same time. Now it's easy to just be oh, multiverse, but I don't want to jump to that. I just want to be maybe he's experiencing something that no one else is. And it makes me think of that story of the guy who checked into a hotel room, or he got whatever, but his ID had a country that didn't exist. So when they went to check in on him in the hotel room, he was gone and he never existed, but the form of him checking in exists. So it's who was this guy and where did he come from? Stuff like that. That's who I think Zampano is right now. He's something like that. This lost entity, and he was blind, he couldn't see, so he's focusing on darkness and surrounding it. So, and then whatever's going on in this house, what's going on in this house? There's a 5-minute hallway. Is this house where Zampano was? And is it the same house? Why was Zampano walking around it? Where'd the cats go? So all that. So if you like this video, I'll try to be consistent with this, because if I'm going to keep reading, there'll just be another hour video. But if you like it, if you have any feedback, let me know. Like I said, mostly for bedtime. I couldn't sleep, so pretty ironic that the our first account, the intro to the book was the guy who couldn't sleep, and he said he has nightmares. But is it because he read this? So, and it is kind of it's really interesting right now. But if you like this, thank you for watching. If I get one person watching and following along, that makes me happy. And the goal is to grow this year, so, and read more. So, kill two birds with one stone. And maybe I do want to write some stuff, so I'm working on that too. But I'll keep reading, and there will be a second video because I want to see where this Novitzin record goes. And I'm not tired now. Now I'm awake and my brain's shooting 100 miles an hour. So, thank you, and I will see you guys in the next one.